Brilliant. Well, Cara, thank you ever so much for your time. We've not met before. This is our first time of chatting. Welcome to, what a baptism of fire you must have had.
Oh, I'm always up for a challenge, but it's delighted. I'm really delighted to meet you, Manda, and thank you for giving me some time this afternoon. How are you? It's a bit cold and wet today, isn't it?
Well, you say that, but I do these things called bench sessions where I go out to different wards, and I've just done one in Southdown, and amazingly, the sun came out. It was like the sun always shines on the mare. That's what I'd like to think.
Yes. Well, I walk to and from work every day, and it's about a 35-minute walk back into the centre of town. And last night I left at about 7, and it was cold and wet and dark. And I thought I'm now going to have to prove how hardcore I am
and keep doing it.
How well I'm adjusting to being part of Bath's life. It's always a lovely walk home, and I can walk home through Queen Park as well, which is beautiful.
Perfect. So I was chatting to a lady called Alison Herbert earlier this week, who is the CEO of Bath Bid, who look after all the businesses. And she was telling me they've got some wonderful plans for some amazing light installations in the run up to Christmas, because we're not having the Christmas market or anything. So maybe you'll walk home, you'll be able to go different routes and see lots and lots of different light installations.
Fantastic. On the way. That would be lovely. Yes, definitely.
So when did you actually move to Bath, Cara?
I moved to Bath at the end of August. So
wow.
very new resident.
Wow. And you live in the centre, did you say?
Yes, yes.
Perfect. So, and you can walk to the RUH.
Yes, which is fantastic. Excellent. So it's one less car park then, isn't it?
Well, as you know, one of the things, and part of the reason we're doing the stuff, and this is what the council is doing around trying to encourage people to walk and cycle more, is because of the health benefits, you know, in terms of air quality, in terms of physical, in terms of obesity, in terms of all that kind of thing. So I'm sure people will be interested. Where were you before you came to Bath?
So I was the chief executive at Salisbury Hospital for nearly 4 years. So just came a little bit further south, but we've been back living in the UK for 12 years now. So by my accent, you can see that I'm not an English national. Obviously I grew up in Australia. I trained as a nurse in Australia. Worked for many years in nursing roles, and then 12 years ago, my husband's English, we moved back to the UK, and I worked, when we first moved back, I worked in Eastern England up near Peterborough and Huntingdon, and then obviously in Salisbury for the last 4 years.
So what drew you to Bath? Both Bath the city and also the RUH as the organisation?
Yes, so Bath is such a beautiful city, and I've visited a number of times, and many years ago, while we were still living in Australia, we came as tourists, and I've always remembered Bath with very fond memories. And I think one of the things that I really love about Bath is it does remind me a bit of Paris, because of course, you know, everything's only ever 4 or 5 stories high, and so the city is so beautiful, you know, it's just a beautiful place to live, and you know, everybody you meet in Bath is just wonderful. They adore living in the city, and it's such a wonderful sense of community. And obviously, in working in Salisbury, I worked quite closely with the RUH anyway. And again, really excited about joining the organisation. I'm excited about being able to be taking the hospital on its next steps. Such a wonderful part of the community, but also particularly, you know, I have a personal view. I think, you know, the NHS at the moment, we are at that tipping point. We're so lucky here to have the NHS. You know, we've had 70 years of what is a wonderful legacy, a huge benefit to the English public. But if we were going to be quite honest with ourselves, we'd also say that the way that we currently deliver services and all of those aspects, to survive another 70 years, to be free at point of care and offer all of the wonderful things that we've offered, you know, we're going to struggle to do that financially. And we also have a responsibility as we spend public money to do that in the best way possible. So, you know, I tend to think that what we do now is that tipping point. We are creating the new NHS. So people will look back in 30 years and look at what we've done today over the next few years about how we deliver services, how we work with partners, how we make sure that care is as close to home as possible, that we are spending the money that we have as wisely as possible, but also as creatively as possible, and really designing our services with the public that use them. So I think it's such an exciting time, and it's really nice to join this community at that time and be part of co-creating that with all of the constituent members in and around Bath, because they will know what they want from their services, they will know what they want in 30 years' time, and we're really excited about having that opportunity to start designing and developing that.
I mean, that is fascinating to hear, and I think we're probably quite similar in some ways, in that you want to be part of an organisation not to just keep it steady state, but because there are challenges, and out of challenges, as we found with the pandemic, there've been ways of working differently that actually may serve us better than the old ways that we probably would just stuck with anyway. I mean, one of the things I always think about is the RUH. You may be able to tell from my accent, I'm not a native Bathonian either, but like you, I've fallen in love with the city. This is home. I always think of it as Bath's hospital, and I forget actually quite how wide a range it has in terms of the people who need the services from it. So I'm very interested to explore what you were saying about working with partners and neighbouring authorities, because I guess for you that's going to be key. When hopefully in 30 years' time we can meet up again and have the conversation.
Exactly,
and
we would have
what
created
did we do
something
right?
amazing.
Right.
No, you're absolutely right. The people of Baines may not be aware, and people of Bath may not be aware, that nearly 50% of people that use the hospital come from Wiltshire. So we have a huge proportion that come from the north of Wiltshire, and we also have a large proportion of people that come from Somerset as well. So we work really closely with all of those communities, and then we obviously link in with Bristol around some of those tertiary services and specialist services that we want to use as well. So whilst we're situated in Bath, you're right, absolutely, our opportunities and the people we work with reach far beyond that. And I think the hospital looks through multiple lenses, I would describe. So our main priority is going to be our local community, but how we work with the council, with community services, with the voluntary sector, to really come together to say, how do we deliver services in the best way possible that uses the money that we've got in the best way possible. But I think, when I speak to people that are using services, the things that frustrate them the most is that they just get frustrated with having to repeat information. They feel that it's quite complex to navigate sometimes what they want. And our job is to make that as simple as possible. And the more that we can work together to do that, and make sure that people spend time in the right place. So, if you think about how we use primary care, making sure that people have that opportunity to use their GPs in primary care, and that's accessible for them when they need that they're able to come to the hospital when they need that, and we can offer the service that they need in a really timely way. And but then importantly, when they no longer need to be in hospital, that we can support them going back into the community with the right support. I'm very passionate about how we care for older people, really conscious that for Bath and some of our surrounding areas, we have a rapidly ageing population. So for me, my ambition would be is that people spend the least amount of time in hospital as possible, because we all know that the best place for people to be is at home with their families or in their normal environment. And the more that we can do to support that and make sure that we've got the services being delivered in the right place is really important. So that's a real mindset shift for hospitals, because of course hospitals need to think quite differently about the role that we play, but also the role that we play in reaching out into the community and offering our services differently in different localities. So I think COVID has really taught us, if you look at our outpatients appointments, we've moved upwards to 50 to 60% of those now to virtual appointments. And we're actively seeking feedback from people about how they find that. Some people find it challenging, but interestingly, many people say, do you know what, it's much nicer to be able to have a call from my own home. I don't have to worry about getting in the car for half an hour to come to the hospital. I don't have to worry about car parking. I don't have to worry about finding my way, and I don't have to worry about sitting in the outpatients department waiting for my appointment. So COVID has really opened the door around how we can work much more differently with the people that are using our services, and create services that are right for them. I think, historically we've always probably done things that were right for staff and the way that we've always done them. So I think you know, there's a real opportunity now to do everything quite differently.
And I think you're right. I think, it's hard to say this. I always can't find the right form of words, because I'm not saying the pandemic's been a good thing. Of course I'm not. And my heart goes out to the people who've suffered either loss or ill health or financially or any of those things. But it has presented us with an opportunity, I think, all of us, to look at what works. And I think, in effect, what I heard you saying, in effect, is it used to be maybe a one-size-fits-all approach before, that this is how you provide your services, where now there are far more ways of providing them, some of which will suit some people, some of which won't. But if you can actually tailor your offering so that people spend the minimum amount of time in hospital, have somewhere to go where they can be looked after so they're not bed blocking or can go home, that's got to be, as you say, the future of the NHS, I imagine.
Definitely, and the only way we can do that is for hospitals like this to work really differently with those community partners. So I'm really excited about what that opportunity is in coming to Bath. I think you know, the staff here are really excited about that as well. We've got some amazing clinicians who have got some great ideas about how we can do things differently, and my job, of course, is to support them in taking those ideas forward.
It's interesting you mentioned staff, because that is the other thing I really wanted to talk to you about. Obviously, my current role as mayor, I sort of represent the city of Bath. What is it we can do, or I can do, or the mayoralty can do, or people can do to show appreciation for the fact that the staff have presumably had quite a rough time, and morale must at times been quite difficult. I hope you know how appreciated. I think the RUH is such a venerated institution. I hope people know that. Is there anything we can do? What I don't want to do is suggest stuff that then you go, well, that's great, but then that means we've got to do a risk assessment about letting the mayor come to visit, or whatever. You know, we don't want it to be something that creates a problem. Yeah. What can we do to show you how much you and all your team are so appreciated?
So do you know, I think it's as little as simply saying thank you, to be honest with you. So I know that I think probably during the middle of the COVID outbreak, when we were probably still in lockdown, there was the video produced of Bath with the you know, showing the impact on the city. You know, that was really emotional, and so I to be honest with you, I think it's the little things such as your community just having the ability to say thank you. So even because of course we have so many staff that work here, and the ability to touch all of them can sometimes be quite difficult. So even something like a video capturing the voices of your community in Bath, and enabling them to say what they would want to share with the hospital staff. You know, I think that would be amazing, because, you know, simply saying thank you is just really important. You know, they genuinely don't expect much more. They come to work, you know, all of us come to work and are committed to doing the jobs that we do because that's what we believe in. And as I said, just hearing from the people that use our services and hearing in their own words about why that's important, I think would be quite powerful for the staff.
Well, can I say thank you right this second? And we are obviously videoing this, so it might be something that, you know, we could take little clips from anyway. And I don't know if you've got like an intranet system for your staff, but I'll certainly take away the thought of what is it we can do just to express the fact that, and sometimes it's interesting you saying thank you is enough, because you always feel you want to do more. But actually, if saying thank you, you know, genuinely from the heart is enough, then thank you.
And you know, and I guess, and the reason I say that is because you know, the COVID has had a massive impact on our communities. You know, I'm really conscious that you know, there were people that lost their livelihoods overnight because of the pandemic, and you know, there are businesses that continue to struggle. You know, let alone the impact on young people, let alone the impact for people still at school and that educational impact. So, you know, COVID has had an impact on everyone. You know, our team here have played their role in supporting the community around that. But at the end of the day, that's what we would expect and hope that our NHS does. And, you know, so that's why, you know, from my perspective, I can, say, just simply saying thank you may feel like you're not doing enough, but the reality is I think that genuine, heartfelt thank you is enough. And to be honest with you, I think we've got a huge appreciation for the community as well, because I know in the height of COVID there were people that were donating things. They were donating food to the hospital, they were donating cakes, all of those things. That went a long way to support the staff, and was really helpful in just giving them a little bit of buoyance around when they were working really hard, because they had to make a huge adjustment. But I would reiterate that I think, to be honest with you, COVID has hit everybody in very different ways, and that impact, the stress that it's caused, the impact for people both personally and professionally has hit everybody. And I think from my perspective, I think there's a huge thank you that needs to go out to the whole community, because I see people working really hard in the restaurants. They are trying to bring Bath back to life. I see all of that, and I think that's really important, because we're all really trying to adjust what living in a COVID world looks like for us.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. So I took office in June, and I decided on my theme for the year before COVID had hit, because I sort of knew at the end of last year. And my theme for the year was combating loneliness. And actually in the COVID and presumably in the post-COVID world, if anything, it's slightly more relevant than it was when I thought of it, because we can't solve absolutely everything all the time, but the fact that the communities have pulled together has stopped people from being lonely. And I completely agree with you, is that everybody has been impacted by this, whether it is financial or health-wise, or there have been some people, I mean, I live on my own. I went from March to July without seeing a single soul other than my Ocado delivery driver, who I probably overshared with, because I think by nature we are all social animals. So it's how we're going to best position ourselves as a community, of which you are obviously an integral part, to get our health back, our mental health and our physical health and financial health at the end of all this. And I feel very cheered by hearing your thoughts and positivity about how you've turned up at the right time to make that happen.
Well, and the reality is COVID is now something that we need to learn to live with and adjust with, isn't it? And I think people are incredibly resilient, and we just have to work together to find our way through that. And I think I loved your priority for the year around loneliness, because again, I mentioned earlier how passionate I am about older people. I think that our older people have been really left exposed around COVID. Not only the personal risk, whereby they had that personal fear that if they caught COVID, what would the consequence be for them? But as you identified, many people found themselves at home with no contact from anybody. We're very fortunate that we've got the virtual technology that we have. But people are really important to me, and I much prefer a face-to-face conversation than a virtual one. And having trained as a nurse myself, touch is really important. And of course, we're now a community that can't touch one another. And we shouldn't ever underestimate the power of a touch.
Yeah.
And because we're all wearing masks as well, we can't express ourselves as well as we could before. So that genuine smile that you get from somebody when you walk down the street, that can often be quite meaningful for people if they're living on their own. We've stopped doing that. So I think there is that sense about how do we make sure that the things that connect us as people, the things that connect us as human beings, we find a way to continue to make that connection, because that's what makes a community from my perspective.
Completely, totally agree. There's a horrid phrase. It's calling people the chronically untouched. Because I'd actually, before this, I didn't consider myself a particularly tactile person, but now I go and meet friends, and we stay at a social distance, we do that. Everything in me wants to give them a hug. Absolutely.
I'm a real hugger as well, so I wouldn't worry about that, Manda. I've had to really retrain myself, and sometimes I'm like, oh, one's just going to pop out any minute now, but
but hold back. Cara, it has been so lovely. Thank you so much. I hope we can chat again. I hope we can meet physically at some stage. I shall give some thought as to how best we can express our thank yous. And if there's anyone in your team for whom having a chat about how we could do the Combating Loneliness campaigns that we're running even better with you as a partner, that would be really appreciated as well. But for now,
I can definitely find somebody for that. You know, certainly our older people's team, I know, would be very passionate about that, and yes, so I'll definitely follow that up for you.
Well, we're also thinking of doing something as simple, and I know it's not quite the same as being physically present, but mayoral coffee mornings over Zoom. That kind of thing. We just want to do it.
Yeah, no, I think that's a fantastic idea because it, you know, it does connect people together. It really does. And there's a whole generation that have learnt a new skill set around Zoom and those things. And you know, my dad's in Australia, so you know, I haven't, you know, I speak to him virtually every day, but you know, that challenge of not knowing when I'm actually going to be able to go back over and visit is really difficult. And you know, I think that, as I said, that piece around how we connect with each other and our families and finding creative ways to do that is really important. So I think coffee mornings is a great idea.
Brilliant. We're on it. Cara, thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. I really appreciate it as well.
Pleasure.
Bye-bye.
I'll see you soon.